Welcome everyone to It Starts with Mom Live Texas Edition. I'm Lauren Prisville with Fox 4 Good Day here in Dallas. I'm a news anchor. More importantly, I'm a mom to a 7-year-old girl and a 4-year-old little guy. He was born 6 weeks early after I was diagnosed with HELLP syndrome. And since then, I've been a big supporter of March of Dimes and the work they do for women and for babies. And I'm also currently in the process of writing a book about miracles that happen in the NICU. They happen all the time, all over the country. And many of those miracles are because of the work that March of Dimes does. So I'm honored to be here today, excited to be part of this, and thank you for joining us. First of all, these are challenging times right now with the whole COVID-19 crisis. Whether you're a mom of 1 or 2 or 3 or 6, or you're a stay-at-home mom, you're a working mom, you're a mom that's in school, it's hard right now. I think all of us ladies can agree on that. Things are tough right now. So we are proud to bring this discussion to you as we launch our It Starts with Mom Live Texas edition. And we're going to address just some of the issues, some of the big challenges that moms are facing today. And we hope when you leave this discussion that you feel empowered, you feel strong, you're ready to take on this crazy world, and smile along the way as best you can. We want to thank our local sponsors, first of all. We couldn't do it without you. So thank you first to Bell Helicopter for being the presenting panel sponsor, and also Wells Fargo for being a panel sponsor. We greatly appreciate you. And, you know, it is 2020, and I think it's so hard to believe and sad that in this day and age, many moms and babies in the US, they're facing an urgent crisis in this country, the US, the most dangerous place to give birth in the developed world. And you look at the statistics, and Texas is one of the worst states. But thankfully, March of Dimes is on our side. They work to advance research, affect healthy policy change, and provide care and support programs for moms, babies, and families. So we thank them so much for the work they do. And this is all part of a series, getting all these moms together and talking about this. This is the third panel in a series of 5. And today we are jumping into moms climbing the corporate ladder. Can you have it all? Can you rule the corner office and still be that perfect mom? I think if anyone's saying yes, or people are saying yes, they probably have like some secret help or some magic wand that I know nothing about. But I truly think it takes a whole village. There are a lot of ways, though, that you can be successful at both. And thankfully, we've got this great group of women today that are going to share some of their stories. They are industry leaders, and they have climbed the corporate ladder, and they've also done an excellent job of juggling home life too. So let's get started. I want to introduce some of the people here with us this morning, and joining me today, we have Shawn Brown. She is Vice President and Deputy General Counsel with Kimberly-Clark, and a mom of 3. Good morning, Shawn.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
And then we have Cindy Giles. She is Senior Vice President, Division Executive Commercial Banking with Wells Fargo, a mom of 3 as well.
Good morning.
And Deborah Curry is an engineer with Bell Helicopter, a mom of 3. And I was reading a huge advocate for the foster care system. So I'm interested to talk with you about that.
Good morning.
And then we have Becca Wigman. She is founder of Grace and Grit and a mother of 4. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So they've given me a list of questions, and we'll just jump on in. We'll take turns answering. I don't have a magic mute button. I'm hoping I'm not going to need it. But let's go ahead. We're going to talk work first. And I think the first question that we have is what you're doing career-wise what you always thought you would be doing? And if not, how'd you end up where you are? Shawn, I'll start with you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the answer is kind of. So I've always wanted to be a lawyer. I actually decided I wanted to be a lawyer in 3rd grade, if you can believe that. I don't know that me or my family knew exactly what that meant. being an attorney because I did not know any attorneys, nor did I have any in my family. But I just, for some reason, probably television, had this burning desire. But my family was quite supportive, and education was always stressed in my home. And so we knew that it would take a lot to get me there. So fast forward to in high school, I worked at the public defender's office. We had a program called the Management Internship Program my senior year. So I spent half a day at school and half a day at the public defender's office. Very much enjoyed seeing what happened in the courtroom, was not so keen on criminal defense work. And so I knew that I still wanted to be a lawyer, but needed to understand a little bit more about what they did. But I liked the courtroom. And so once I went to law school, I was very interested in civil litigation, which is what I do currently do, although now it's for a business lawyer for a company, as opposed to being a trial lawyer in the courtroom, which I did for over 20 years. And I very much enjoyed that, and did not particularly anticipate that I would transition to what we refer to as in-house lawyer practice as opposed to private practice, but got a great opportunity with Kimberly Clark. And some things we'll talk about later was just a company that was mission aligned with things that I held dear. And so here I am leading litigation for the Kimberly Clark organization, which is a great place to be and not necessarily where I thought I would end up.
Yeah, Cindy, what about banking?
No. Oh, I think every year I want to do something different, from being a fighter pilot to fireman, and which neither one of them I would have been good at, right? Let's just be really candid. But I think the high interest in a lot of things ultimately matches up with what I do today. So I had a cousin who was in banking, and seemed like he did well, had a great family, and it aligned with some of the principles and values that I had hoped to develop for myself. And so that led me to kind of trying it, but I don't think I truly understood what banking was about or what I would end up doing. But I have a pretty high curiosity as a person, and I get to deal across a lot of industries and a lot of people. So it keeps me very, very excited about what I do. Like Sean, I've ended up through a series of twists and turns at a great organization that is very supportive of what I do and has helped me be better. So I'll get into that more later, but it's not what I thought I would do.
All right, Deborah, Bell Helicopter.
So I ended up doing what I planned on doing. I've come from a long line of people who studied STEM. Both my grandparents, my parents, my dad's an engineer, my mom is a mathematician. So math kind of naturally came easy to me. So becoming an engineer, I made that decision kind of early on in my career, in school, because I like math and science, and my parents and people from my community also supported me in becoming an engineer. Working for Bell has been fabulous because they also are supportive of my continued growth as an engineer.
Yeah, everyone saying that their companies really have helped them out. Becca, what about you? I know you've done an advertising route.
Yes, absolutely not. I call myself the accidental CEO. I've worked in advertising my entire life, my entire career, since the Monday after graduation. And I was CEO of multiple agencies. I own my own agency, none of which was my aspiration. I was in business school at Loyola University, and while my concentration was marketing, advertising was in the communication school. So I thought it was a creative thing. I didn't know anything about it. And ironically, I babysat a lot in college, and the woman I babysat for on a regular basis and I adored, she said, "You were made for advertising." And I said, "Oh, I don't think so." And she says, "Yeah, I'm going to hook you up with an interview." And I went in, didn't know research back in the day, and I was 21 and thought I knew everything. And I went in to meet this woman, and she said, "So, you know Jim Dale, who happened to be the CEO?" And I said, "No, I don't know Jim. I don't know what he does for the agency, and I have no intention of working in advertising. I'm simply doing this out of respect for a woman I love." She laughed so hard. 3 hours later, I had a job, and I started the next week.
Really?
So, no. And I also say, I never aspired to be a CEO or to own my own agency. I just got into this field, and she was so right. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. And things just happened kind of naturally and organically because I just loved what I did.
It seems like you are all good fits for whatever job it is. Did you ever think about taking a step back? Like, I don't know, I don't want to say quitting, but I know that, like, at least with my, with my kids, I thought, because I was older, I'm going to get my dream job, and then I'm going to do the stay-at-home part. I'm going to stay at home with my kids. But then when it came time to like pull the plug, I was like, no, I'm going back. Because I think being a good mom is me working, is me having a creative outlet, and getting to work and help the community. Do you all feel that way? Or did you all question that at times? Because sometimes I think people think I'm either a working mom or I'm a stay-at-home mom, but that's not always so easy.
Absolutely. I would say, so my oldest is 17 now, and in the law firm space, still there are not a lot of women partners, and there's not a lot of women partners who have children. And I was a mid-level associate at the time that I had my son. And so I did not see myself, at the firm often. There were a few examples, but not very many. And so every woman who was sort of around the general sort of childbearing kind of time, it kind of came up around the same time where you go to baby showers and everybody is having a baby around the same time. There were so many who made the choice to take a step all the way back or partially back. And everyone, of course, has to make the right decision for themselves and their families. But it was a real struggle for me because I really didn't know who my peers were going to be, who's going to be the same that's trying to juggle to get the nanny out the door, or who's going to be trying to find a place to nurse with a lock on their door in the law firm while they're on a conference call. And luckily, and I know we'll get to this later, I did have some great people who invested in me, and I did not step back. But the thing that pulled me, Lauren, to your point, was two things. One, kind of a funny story. When I was on maternity leave, and my husband's also a lawyer, so he was going to work, and I was staying at home while I was on leave, and I was talking to the baby all day, and it was as if I was talking to myself. And by the time he got home, I was just like, oh my gosh, another adult to talk to. I just need to have conversation where my brain cells, I feel like, are being like pulled on. And it was a difficult return to work. But I think the other piece, I actually am more fulfilled personally when I did have something to do that was external to the home and to the family. And I felt like that made me a better mom.
Sean, I agree with you. And I have two girls. I have 3 kids total, but 2 girls. And so I think it's been important to set an example of being able to have it all. Sorry, I get a little emotional about this because it's a big deal to show that you can do it. And I had a mom who was at home, fabulous. She was the PTA parent. She was taking all the photos. She was she held a title every year, and she's wonderful too. And I saw a part of myself wanting to be that and to replicate that at the same time as I was a little bit driven to this, I go back to the curiosity, like I had things out there I wanted to do and think about. And I think I'm a much better mom like you, Sean, having that outside stimulation and bringing that into the home. And I consider that my job as a parent.
I agree. I was a little bit different because I thought, at first I didn't think I was going to be able to have kids. So it was a happy miracle. And so I thought, I'm definitely staying home. And again, I didn't think I was going to go into advertising. And when I found myself in the hospital calling work to see what was going on. And for 6 months, I talked at work and did work. And I really was like ready to go back. And I felt really guilty about it. I thought, because like you, my mom was home and she was amazing. The house smelled so good walking in and something fresh was cooking. And I felt guilty. I had to get past that I'm actually better for my kids when I'm fulfilled at work and doing what I love.
So I'm going to move on to the next question because you've all talked about your companies being so supportive. And I'm curious, did you receive support or what kind of mentorship along the way from other women? Who has helped you out and in what ways? So Cindy, I'll start with you.
All right, well, this is a little bit of a mixed answer because early I didn't feel like I had that support. I mean, the banking industry's changed a lot just in the time frame that I've been there. I mean, we started with you gotta wear pantyhose and you can't wear pants and right, like I don't even feel like I'm that old, and yet it has changed really dramatically in 20 years. So I did not feel that early on. I actually felt like I kind of had to hide my home life from the office to pretend this like it didn't exist and it wasn't distracting me, because if you talked about your kids, that I got the impression that it was not acceptable. And that's changed even for my husband when he was working. Like I think the expectation of bringing family in is much more the norm now, and we should get to know things about people's families. So an answer to say I did not feel it early. I definitely feel it now. There are a lot of great women leaders, both inside of Wells Fargo and out, that I have looked to kind of model after and watch how they do it. And most important, to see that they don't do it all really well all the time, and they show their vulnerability. That to me has been the biggest gift, that you understand you don't have to be perfect.
It's okay to be messy. I like that. Deborah, what about you?
So I became a mom a little bit a non-traditional way. I became a mom through the foster care system. So my best story about how my company really supported me is, I became a foster parent. The child showed up on a Sunday. I took off work on that Monday. That Tuesday, I came back to work and I told my management, I'm a mom. And the next thing I know, people were bringing me things that, I didn't have a traditional baby shower or anything like that. But I had all these women, and even the men came and just tried to share a little bit of tidbits just to kind of help me as I was going through this new journey of becoming a mom.
I actually had the opposite. I think that's so awesome that you had such amazing support. Advertising, there are not very many women. There's still not very many women. Have never worked for a woman. And so I took it upon myself to be that person, to embrace it, and to have women who worked for me and with me to be their mentor. And really, I always brought my kids in, like you guys said, you bring them into work. Everybody knows my kids. You can't separate the two. Balance is not a real thing. It's messy, and work needs to know your family, and your family needs to know work. That's okay.
Yeah. I think, so I will speak, my answer is probably a little bit like Cindy's. So I would say in my current role and with Kimberly Clark, the company itself is very much family friendly. I mean, we sell diapers, right? I mean, it's core to what we do. And so your family is very much an integrated part of what you bring to the workspace. And from our CEO all the way down, it is very integrated. I will say the profession of law, similar to banking, is not the most kind to that. And so if there are women out there who are young lawyers who are either having young children or thinking about starting a family, I know and recognize that that can be difficult. I had a number of great women who mentored me. Not all of them had children, but were very supportive and very much every step of the way gave me the encouragement to do what needed to be done to advance my career, but also to make sure that it was an integral process, even though I personally, because I didn't see it, I would say kind of a dual life. I had work Sean and home Sean. But an interesting story is we have 3 children, and our second 2 children are 20 months apart. And I'm very much a planner, and that was not in my plan. And I was a new partner. I made partner when I was pregnant with my second daughter. So I was like 8 months pregnant when I was interviewing. And then I became a partner, and I was starting my first year of not trying to get pregnant, not being pregnant, and not having a newborn when 2007 rolled around, and I got pregnant with my third child. And I remember walking into our managing partner's office, who was a woman, and in tears. And I was just like, I got to figure out how to work this out. And she said, Sean, this is not a big deal. First of all, at some point, everybody goes to kindergarten, first grade, or third grade, and you'll have much more time. She was like, it will work out. Don't worry about it. And that encouragement was so much for me, because I really thought I was going to have to choose because I had not planned it to work out in that way.
What would you tell your younger selves? Like, I think there's a lot of women that, I don't know, you guys have kind of paved the way, because a lot of you are saying in your industry that there aren't a lot of women. So what would you tell someone that's coming up behind you, that's hoping to follow in your footsteps? What advice would you give to them? Becca?
I think it's a different age now, which is wonderful, but I think find yourself a mentor. If you don't have a mentor in your organization, or you don't work with someone you feel is a mentor, find someone that you respect. If you hear someone speak, or you hear somebody, or you meet somebody in a networking organization, don't be afraid to ask. It's a high compliment for an executive woman to be asked to be a mentor. So they're not going to think you're weird, and it's really a compliment. It's not a burden, trust me. So ask. It's the highest compliment a woman could get.
Yeah, Cindy?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, well, I think myself, my maturity has been just learning patience with myself more than anything. It's the hurry to get to the next step in the career, the hurry to get to be the perfect mom, the hurry to be the best wife. Like there's patience I need to give myself. I still suffer with this just a little bit, but much better about appreciating the things that I do well, and looking back and seeing what I can do better, and taking it as a lesson versus that just sense of urgency. I think that has done well for me, but it can tip its way into the impatience, if you will.
Yeah. All right, Deborah, what advice would you give your younger self?
I would say to continue to be a lifelong learner. There's so many lessons that you can continue to learn. Be a sponge, learn as much as you can about a variety of different subjects that you can learn about. You can never know or never become the expert on anything. So, I mean, you can just continue to learn, seek out those who can teach you different things, different resources, read different novels, study different things. Just learn as much as you possibly can.
All right, Sean.
I love that. I would say find a workspace where you can bring your authentic self. And when you're thinking about where you're going to spend that time, I think the Cindy and Sean example of sort of like not being two different people in two different spaces is likely not the best. And you're not going to be the most productive at either place. And then the other thing that I would share is something that I actually heard last night, listening to an interview of a woman named Rachel Apter, who is a lawyer and clerked for Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And said when she was clerking with Justice Ginsburg, that Justice Ginsburg said to her, "Distant as it may seem to you now, you will have many working years after your children are adults." And for me, I think that just speaks volumes, because there's living in the moment and the space of where your kids and your family are now, and not rushing through that, but recognizing that there is a lot of time on the back end that you're going to still have to have runway for your career, and you'll have a different type of relationship as it evolves with your children. So I thought that was really, really important to share and timely.
Yeah. I'm curious, let's talk about your home life for a little bit. Each of you are very successful in your careers. At what point, I know Sean, you mentioned this, and it made me think that too, life throws curveballs at you. I'm a planner. I think to be successful, you probably are some sort of planner, because you're motivated and you're moving forward, and at least, but things don't always work out how you plan. We had our daughter, and then we had a miscarriage in between my daughter and my son. And so I think that was tough, that things don't always work out how you want them to, and you can't plan everything. So did family planning for you all go the way you planned? I'll start with, let's see, Deborah, go ahead.
So if I was talking to my younger self, I would have thought I would have gone to college, gotten married, gotten a job, had the 2.5 kids, and life would have been successful. But life didn't really work out that way. I did go to college, got great jobs, and then I was progressing in my career. And then one day I woke up and I said, "Oh my goodness, I forgot to have kids. So I decided at that point that that was something that was really important to me. And that's how I became partnered with the foster care system. And that's how I became a mom. So yeah, I did specifically plan to become a mom at the time that I did.
When you decided to foster, I'm just curious, did you know that was the way to go? I mean, did you feel it in your heart that that's what you wanted to do? Or I mean, what led you to that?
So I'm single. So I went through a period where I worked with different agencies and tried to interview and find different agencies to work with me. But a lot of agencies, they wanted a married couple and they also wanted a couple that were younger than 40. So at that time, I was neither one. And I found myself after I did some more research about the foster care system being drawn in that way. And of course, the goal of foster care is to reunite. And I'm totally supportive of that. And several of my children did reunite. But on cases where they do not, or they're not able to reunite, oftentimes a foster parent will be able to become an adoptive parent. And in my case, that's how I became a parent.
And how many kids do you have?
3.
Wow. Wow, that's great. All right, Sean, go ahead.
Sure. So kind of, sort of, yes. The lawyer never able to answer the question directly. I will say this, I don't think there's ever a right time. So I was kind of waiting for this moment, to Deborah's point where I was like, okay, it's time to have a baby. And I was going to be super excited about it and, drive into it. And to be honest, I never got the, okay, I'm super excited, it's time. It was just sort of like, okay, if we're going to do this, it's time. And that's kind of where I was in the plan. And I got to tell you, after our first, between our first is a boy and then we have 2 girls. And my husband was like, well, he's 2. And I was like, what are you talking about? Because I had just gotten sort of life adjusted. And so we did plan it. And it generally worked out in terms of kind of what we wanted in terms of spacing. But I was pretty, I would say, calendar driven, not organic in how the family developed, which now it's really fun because they're all teenagers and they've got really amazing thoughts, little brains of their own. But at the time it was a lot, particularly when I had 3 kids under 5.
Yeah, that will. Becca, you have 4. I don't know how you do it. I can barely handle. I can't handle 2. 1 was hard enough.
Well, I'm a planner too. I think we're all little type A's to get where we are. But I actually got pregnant on our honeymoon. And I was not happy because I was 25 and I wasn't ready. And then I got really happy and excited. And 5 months later, on Mother's Day, I had a miscarriage. So I was convinced that I couldn't have children. And it was 4 years. We were married for 4 years. And then Cecilia was born. I thought, well, she's a miracle. And so that was it. I was going to be a mom of 1. And that was great. And then 3 years later, there's Bernadette. And then they just kept coming. So the last 3 were about, 3 and change years apart, just over 3 years apart. So, I just kind of learned to, every one of them is a gift. And when they come, they come. And when you don't expect to have kids, it's such a joy. And they're all 6 years, 6 years between them. And they're best friends, and it's amazing. I highly recommend they all do the dishes when they're older.
There you go. Yeah, put them to work. What about you, Cindy?
Yeah, I have 3, and I attempted to plan, and nothing worked according to plan. I had Grace after some fertility issues at 24, because I knew kind of right away I wanted to start babies. And I 5-year gap, lots of miscarriages and fertility treatments in between. And then my surprise baby 3, totally not trying to do anything 3 years later. I did also have HELP syndrome, and she was born 8 weeks early. That's my connection to March of Dimes. And I was actually involved before, but I have an even deeper connection now. But I would say planning, and it worked out completely unplanned.
What is the biggest hurdle when it comes to trying to do it all, trying to balance it all? Is it even possible to balance it all or have it all? Becca, go ahead. What do you think? I've seen some of your talks that you've given, some of your TED Talks. I won't say the names of some, because they have some curse words in them, but
I promise not to curse here.
Go ahead and spill the beans.
I think it depends on your definition of balance. I mean, balance doesn't mean perfection. It can't be perfect at anything. And sometimes you're going to miss a meeting, and sometimes you're going to miss a baseball game. And most of the time you're going to miss those things that they schedule in the middle of the day that I have no idea why they do that. Just to torture us. I don't know, but it's okay. I think you have to give yourself a break. And I think that's the hardest thing. And everybody thinks I'm totally messing up. And, everybody has looked in the mirror and said, and I'll quote this from the TED Talk, is I'm a hot mess. Like I'm a mess. And you look around and you look at all these beautiful women, and you say, these ladies have their act together. And I know that all of you had said that at the same time. And so just realize that everyone is thinking the same thing. You look at other women and say, they totally have it together. And inside they don't feel that way. So just give yourself a break.
Yeah. Deborah?
I would say, don't be afraid to ask for help. As I mentioned before, I've got small kids. So the best resource I've ever done is going out and hiring somebody to help me, because I can't do it all. And expecting to do it all is just a recipe for, in my case, for disaster. So asking for help, getting the help where you need it. And I mean, that was probably the biggest lesson I had to learn.
Yeah. Cindy, what about you?
Well, I'm gonna, yes, I agree with both of you. The interesting thing that we've made a change in our family is my husband was also working forensic accounting, and the last couple of years we were both working were so challenging that I went to him and said, we got to do something different. I think I should start staying home. And, it was interesting because he said, well, you love your job, and I like my job, but I don't love my job, and I'm not sure where it's going, and we know where yours is going, so I should stay home. And we did that, and I still didn't let go of all the things that I was doing, because he was doing a lot of travel at the time, and so I still felt the need I have to be the one to be the teacher contact and the coach contact, and it's taken me 5 years to start to let go of all of those things. And so to your help, to your comment about asking for help, like I had to learn to get better at trusting him with some things that I considered mom duties. And it's still, my kids still come to me for things that they only want their mom for. And so it's, to me, hurdle and balance is not being able to be there when I'm letting my husband do that, and kind of letting go of it, because I am a little bit of a control freak on things.
Yeah. It's so hard to let go, isn't it? Like because you want it done a certain way, but sometimes you don't say, okay, you do it your way, which can be hard. Sean, have you had that?
Oh, absolutely. I jokingly say, is this a life or death decision? Because I'm always like, it goes on this side of the refrigerator, and it has to be, 24.5 centimeters close to XYZ. Here's the spreadsheet, and they must be picked up at this time. And I just think it's hilarious, because most of the time if I have to travel, or, everything gets done that needs to get done. There may be a few things that would be nice to have that don't get done, that I would kill myself doing, that perhaps my husband wouldn't. And honestly, it all turned out fine. So I think, but in addition to, I think there's 2 points I would make here, Lauren. One is that I love the concept of thinking about asking for help. And I also would add on to that, find real people. And so, when my kids started school, like I don't need the mom friends who need my house to have 5 candles burning through it and beautiful fresh flowers on the table. Those are not my people, and they are not bad. They are not my people. Just last week, one of my friends was coming to bring something to the house. And I was like, hey, the kitchen is a mess. I got laundry everywhere, but that's because you're a real friend. This is just how it is. I'm a mess. And I think we have to embrace being a hot mess. I love Becca. I say that too. And then find other people that are just willing to pull down the veil and say, I'm a complete hot mess. I think poignantly, in the environment that we are all finding ourselves today, this point could not be more important, because what we are doing is called work from home. Work from home is not being your kid's virtual teacher and trying to make sure that you are the lunch lady, you are the resource person, you are the, PE teacher, you're sewing and you're, cooking and cleaning. And I mean, there's so many things where in my life, I have been able to have resources that are external to the home that have made it a more bearable experience for me to integrate things. I hate the word balance, but integrate things into life. And a lot of that is stripped away in this environment where we must socially distance and be careful about how we treat the spaces in which we live. And that is a heavy burden, particularly for mothers, as we walk through that space, because even if you have arrangements, there's just certain things that sadly we put on ourselves for guilt, or that the kids will come to us and expect us to do. And you've got to find some outlets for yourself, because otherwise you will crumble.
Yeah, I recently read this interview with the author Nora Roberts, and she said that, and I thought this was perfect. She said the key to juggling was to know that all the balls that you're juggling, that some are plastic and some are glass. I don't know if you ladies have heard this, but to know which ones are glass and to know which ones are plastic. And if they're plastic, if it's something that you could, because it'll bounce back, it'll drop on the floor and it'll bounce and it's going to be okay. But if it's one of the balls that's glass that day, that's something you gotta really watch. And I just thought that was such a great image of how sometimes your days go, where you're just trying to figure out which balls are glass and which ones are plastic, and what decisions you really need to make. And I think that kind of goes to the next question, which is the advice that you would give millennial or the Gen Z generation who are thinking about working and starting a family. Like, what's the best advice that you would give them? I think for me, it would be to live in the moment. And maybe that's not even advice, I think, because I couldn't do that when I was trying. I was so young on air. I had moved to Boston. I was the youngest person I'd ever had on air in that market. And I'm in a top market and I'm just faking it till I make it. I'm just trying to get everything done and look good at the same time while trying to get good stories on air. And I think I was just so focused on planning, that was so, and it wasn't until I had my daughter and I looked at her and thought, and I cried when I had her. I was a mess. And my husband said, "You are a weeping willow," because I would cry. I'd be, she's never going to be 3 days old again. Oh my gosh. And she's 4 days. She's never going to be. And he was like, "Oh my gosh, you're a mess." But it was that moment when I learned to live for each day. And I think my life just totally slowed down. And now I truly feel like I appreciate every day. So I think you have to find something that makes you appreciate every day. Don't just be so work minded. What about you guys? What, Deborah, what do you think?
I think realizing that it is possible to have it all. You can have a career and you can have a family. It may look different than what your colleague may have, but it is possible. There are great places and great resources that can help you. Speak with your management about your opportunities with your career. Speak with your family and friends about opportunities and things and help that you may need. But I think it is possible to have it all. I don't think you have to choose.
Becca, you agree with that?
I do. I would also say, and I'm coming from a little bit later perspective when your kids are older, I think there's a lot of mom guilt. So when you get home, everything has to be perfect and you're going to do it all and you're going to do the laundry and you're going to make dinner. And I think you have to teach your kids at a very early age that they're part of the household and that everybody has responsibility and it's not just mom. And, luckily my husband is amazing. But since they were tiny, they had little jobs to do. And now when dinner's over, no one has to tell them what to do. They empty the dishwasher, clean up the kitchen, and my husband and I sit and have a glass of wine. And I think if you teach them on, and they want to be part of it, you don't have to do it by yourself.
Yeah, Cindy.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm actually going to bring up social media here because I think it's going to be a powerful influence. It already is. And what I worry about a lot, I think it has its place, but I worry about a lot for my daughters is the mistaken perfection is it's almost coming more to the surface to me, that people are expected to look perfect, and they just had a picnic with their family and it looked like this, and probably the kids fought and it was again messy, but they didn't show that picture. So I worry a lot about that piece, and try to talk to my girls about that, especially my son too, but my girls especially, because I don't want them. I have felt trapped by mistaken impressions and social norms, and not thinking that, well, like, what will people think if my husband stays at home versus me working, and like, how did he feel about that? And I don't want them to feel trapped by the social norms, and social media can make it 10 times worse.
Yeah. John, your advice?
Yeah, I think it kind of dovetails into my real people thing, and I would say get a squad. I usually say get a girl squad, but I'd say get a mom squad. And if you can't, and it can be across the board. I have some folks in my mom squad who are moms who stay at home, and they are my kids and their kids are very good friends, and they are able to stand in the gap when Becca, have those meetings at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, who does that? But I get all the information as if I was there. And then I have a number of mom squad friends who also have professions and careers that are pretty demanding. And, if somebody says, hey, I got a board meeting on Tuesday and blah, blah, like, they don't have to say anything more. I'm like, great, I'll come get Charlotte. I'll pick her up at 7:30, no problem. I got it. And you need to surround yourselves with a support system of people who understand the craziness of your life. And with that, you have a bad day and you're like, man, I completely bombed this work meeting, or my kid, got a D on this test and they didn't study, or they're very upset over XYZ. Just that ability to be able to share those experiences, because that sense of onlyness, which kind of dovetails into what Cindy said, as if you're the only one who's not having the perfect picnic, and the beautiful 2.5 kids and a dog in the white picket fence can really beat on you. So you got to find your real people and create a squad.
I have always believed that knowledge is power. And I think that the more we talk like this, the more we share like this, I think the more we all learn together and can kind of lean on each other. So ladies, I want to thank you for opening up, for sharing your stories, the ugly, the messy, the joys, everything along the way. And I think our viewers got some good tips too, some inspiration, some laughs as well, I hope. So thank you to those who tuned in as well. And thank you, though, to those who support the March of Dimes as well. It is a reliable resource and a huge support system for moms and for babies, and not just during a COVID pandemic, but all the time. So if you enjoyed this conversation today, I invite you to make a donation. I invite you to make a difference in the lives of women and babies. You just go to the event website that is linked on the Facebook page below. You just click on it. You can give. Every dollar truly helps. So thank you for those who are willing to make a donation. And also, I want to invite you to join these panels, all these panels that we have, for more information to see what panels are next in the It Starts With Mom Texas Edition series. I invite you to visit itstartswithmom.org. Ladies, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Your smiles are great. Keep on keeping on. You're doing awesome. Sometimes we just need to hear that, right? Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all for being with us, and we'll see you next time. Have a good day.